And with that being said, Elektra Smith, amazing woman of God, amazing entrepreneur, nonprofit, mime dancer. Veronica actually introduced me to Elektra. So I am just excited about the opportunity to have Elektra share. She has become a little sister to me when Veronica had to leave us. And God blessed me to still remain connected. And so many beautiful things have come out of those relationships. So I'm very, very grateful. Elektra is going to come and she's going to speak on adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse and intervention strategies. So I'm going to turn it over to Elektra. And we're going to take a break at around 2:30 to 2:45. Let y'all stretch your legs, get a bathroom break, and then we'll come back on at 2:45. So I'm going to turn it over to Elektra. God bless you, Elektra. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Erica, for having us and having this conference to end all abuse. Wow, this is truly a full circle moment. And I'm going to let you all know, if you see me cry, it is not because I have not done my healing. It might be tears of joy, tears of validation, as I go on to speak of adult survivor of child sexual abuse. Like Erica said, we met through Veronica, and I endearingly call her Mama V, because in my young adulthood, I met Veronica through my foster mother, who I call my godmother. And she told me about a lady that I just had to meet, and we ended up meeting at a Starbucks. And after she shared her story, I shared mine, and we embraced each other, and I began to release tears, a weight lifted off of me, because she was a part of my journey. She was a part of my journey of healing. She said one of the things that she just spoke of was that she deserved the true her. That's true for all of us. We deserve our true selves. And as I became this young adult, in search of the true me, I found myself in my first marriage, young at 19 years old. And the first marriage was actually an abusive marriage. Now, it wasn't your typical abusive domestic violence situation where it was very extensive of almost to death, where I felt like I was about to die, or my husband was going to kill me at the time. But it was indeed an abusive relationship. It was indeed an abusive situation, as Ms. Dolores spoke and provided us with education on what that looks like, what an abusive relationship looks like, what an abusive situation looks like. It's not always to the extent of death, but it can be detrimental. It's still all detrimental, even on the so-called smaller scale of things. In my first marriage that I thought was it, my husband at that time began to cheat on me. I began to feel and sense things in my spirit that something just wasn't right. And it caused a lot of arguments. It caused a lot of anger. I felt like I was being re-victimized again in that marriage. And God just God just allowed me to see what was going on in that marriage, and it was abusive. I struggled with my faith. Like Miss Dolores mentioned, I struggled with my faith, and that was some of the reason why I stayed in the situation, in my first situation of marriage, because I said, God, I need to fight for this thing. And God began to help me to release healing, help me to understand that, Elektra, I did not call you or want you to be in a marriage where you are hurting and in pain. That is not love. For you to experience the level of pain of your husband cheating on you, having sex with other women, bringing those women to your house, the women knocking on your door, the women sleeping in your bed, that was abuse. That should have never went down like that. I don't care what goes on in your marriage. You did not cause him to go out and sleep with countless women in your marriage. Don't take that blame. See, all of this is tied in. All of this is tied into being an adult survivor of child sexual abuse, because all of these things came back to my mind. All of these things came back to my memory. And God began to speak to me and said, this is not what I called for you. This is not what I ordained. This is not it. And so I went to my childhood counselor. I reached out to her, and I remember us going to a few counseling sessions in my first marriage. And I said, well, maybe this can help because she knows me. And she's going to help us get this thing back together. So I went to my childhood therapist, and we had a few sessions, and he was still cheating. And because of the arguments and because of me accusing him and me trying to take up for myself. Because I said at that moment, at that time, at 19 and 20 years old, Elektra, who is now just got her feet wet with being an adult, and just owning that I am a survivor of child sexual abuse, at that point, I was taking up for myself. I was saying, no, you're doing this and you're doing that. Oh, I was calling it out. And it was increasing the anger and animosity within my first marriage. And it got to the point where we were putting hands on each other. He grabbed me first, took me by the shoulders, and he would slam me on the bed. And it was rage. I felt rage. I felt anger in my spirit. We were cussing each other out. He put his hands on me. I put my hands back on him. So we were wrestling, toiling with each other on the bed. I could remember him being on me, putting his body on me, putting his weight on me. And because we were arguing so bad, and I would tell him, like, you're not putting your hands on me. You're not going to beat me. And so it was like literally a fight. And at this point, you messing with somebody who has gone through child sexual abuse. You're messing with somebody who now I'm angry, and now I'm ready to speak up for myself and take situations into my own hands. And you're not going to do this to me. You're not going to treat me like this. I've already been through a situation as a child where my innocence was snatched from me. My family was snatched from me. So many things were snatched from me. Oh, but you're not going to snatch nothing from me, and I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight this thing. And so we had many fights. We had many fights going back and forth between, I love you, I'm sorry, baby, it's never going to happen again. And I believe him, and I fall into his arms and want to be so in love. And this is my first love. And this is the first man that I gave myself sexually to on my own terms. This is the first man that I had sexual intercourse with because I wanted to as an adult. This was my first love right here. And I said, no, this is going to be it. This is going to work out. But all in all, because he stepped out on the marriage, because he fought with me, and he wanted me to believe his lies, and he wanted me to believe that this was love, and he wanted me to believe that it was never going to happen again, and all of these things. And it was a cycle I felt myself get into over and over. And I went to my godmother, who was my foster mom, and I went to a few people who were close to me at the time, and I reached out to them to see what I should do. And none of what was said to me felt right. I said, you know what? People know this person from the outside. They don't know the marriage and that goes on behind closed door on who this person is. I'm the only person who knows this man for real, for real. I'm the only person who is married to this man and who is home with this man when this man comes home from work. And there was a moment where we didn't have a car, and he would have his female friends bring him home from work. And I will watch, and I will glare, and I will call him out on his stuff, and he will be pissed with me. I said, well, you're going to be pissed with me today, because I'm going to call you out on every single lie that you tell. And it's not going to be peaceful in this house. And you're not going to keep having sex with me while you're still out here running around with these hoes. So I'm going to get a little gangster, because this is real. This is real. This is what goes on. And so in my transparency, when I would call him out on this stuff, we went to counseling, all of these things, none of it worked. I said, this is it. I'm not going back. I got to get away from you. So I couldn't listen to mama. I couldn't listen to no so-called friends in my life at that time. I couldn't listen to nobody. All I had was myself. All I had was God. So at that time, in my first marriage, that was indeed abusive. And I would second guess myself, and I would question myself, is this abuse? Is this not abuse? It might not be abuse, because, I don't feel like, he has a gun. He's not trying to kill me. This is why education is important. This is why education is important. Education is key to our survival. Education is key to our survival. So I will go back and forth in my mind who just became an adult, in my mind who now I've matured into an adult, and now who I'm telling my first love, my first marriage, the first person who I gave my body to on my terms, I got to cut this off because you're abusing me. I finally realized, and I finally accepted, and I finally acknowledged that this was abuse. And I got to get out of this marriage. I don't care who's outside looking and telling me to stay and work it out, to stay and try to do this and try to do that. No, you're not sleeping with this man. You're not married to this man. I am. And I'm the one who has to go through this every single day. So I have to make this decision for myself. This is how I knew I was breaking the mold from victim to victor, victim to survivor, Elektra. Survivor Elektra, who is now starting to not second guess herself, who is now starting to be able to process these things and say, this is not right. This is not healthy love. This is unhealthy love. He has some issues that he needs to get through. But guess what? I'm not signing up to walk through that fire with him. He has to walk through that fire and get burnt on his own. I'm not getting burnt and no longer with him. He has to overcome these issues by himself. I am not God. Has anybody ever tried to save somebody and be God in their life? I'm not God, and I'm not going to walk through the fire with you to become healed, because guess what? I'm going to still be in an abusive situation. I'm still going to be walking through this fire, getting burnt, getting hurt over and over and over again, when God has told me that I have a choice. And in this life, we can choose life and we can choose death. And right now, Survivor Elektra is going to choose life for herself. So I chose life, and I left that first marriage. And I left that first marriage with people in my ear telling me that I need to do this and I need to do that. No. I know what situation I was dealing with. You didn't. I know that there was a woman who knocked at my door past 9 o'clock at night, blowing cigarettes, smoke in my face, asking for my husband. I closed the door. I said, get up. I ain't gonna say exactly what I said, but I cussed him out. I said, get up. I said, somebody is at the door for you. And nobody experienced that but me. Nobody knew that but me. I said, I'm not going to allow myself to go through this no more. I'm leaving. I'm leaving. This is it. So I left, and we were divorced officially with me being 23 years old. I am an adult survivor of child sexual abuse. And as an adult survivor of child sexual abuse, it is a lifetime journey of healing that takes place. And some of the effects, some of the long-term effects can trickle into all of your different relationships. Relational issues with friendships, with business, with marriage, intimacy, especially intimacy. Because my first experience with sex, my first experience with sexual gratification was with a man, and I was a child. I knew things a child should never know at 5 years old. I knew things about sex that I should never have been aware of at 11 years old. I should have never experienced me getting my period with my uncle, who was my second abuser. I should have never experienced that. I experienced so much stuff that I should have never gone through. But these are some of the things that you still go through in your lifetime of becoming a survivor and learning how to speak up for yourself, assert for yourself, understanding that this is abuse. This might, in the world terms, in society terms, this might be a form of abuse that, it's not that serious. It is that serious because the little things, it grows to become the bigger stuff that's uncontrollable. Then before you know it, you get into a crisis mode, a traumatic and crisis mode that's uncontrollable because it started out as a small thing. So a little bit about myself. Personally, since I had left that relationship, divorced at 23 years old, I went through my season of singleness. I found the love of my life that God sent. He was a godsend. I am now currently married to my second husband, who we are about to go on to 7 years of marriage, and we just birthed our baby girl at the beginning of this year. And so now I'm a mother of two, and I have a beautiful family that I fought for. I fought for this. I prayed for this. I prayed to have a healthy marriage. I prayed to be a healthy person, to be a healthy mother, to be a healthy wife, to give and receive healthy love. All of that is steps of a survivor, of abuse, of neglect, of abandonment. So now currently I am in school I'm in school in grad school for social work. I am on the track for licensure. I am a mental health counselor. I have been skill building counseling for adults for almost 10 years now. And in last year, in one of my sessions, in one of my classes, when we did film, I did a poem, and I looked at the poem the other day, and I said, wow, this is perfect for now. So I'm gonna share this poem that I did while in class. It was a poem that says that we were supposed to build on our own, and we created the poem ourselves. And it started out with, we were given the words, I came here to. So I want you to think about what you came here to do. You came to this and all abuse for what reason? What was your purpose? I came here to, you fill in the blank. I came here to serve my purpose. That's true. To finish what I started. Yeah. I came here to finish strong, a place where I know I belong. I came here to be everything that I needed when I was a child, to give hope, inspire, and share a smile. Very simple, but that's what I came here to do. Inspire, bring hope to somebody out here who has gone through any form of abuse, domestic, sexual. Whew. RAINN, RAINN, RAINN.com. Children and teen statistics. I want to share some statistics with you. Child sexual abuse is a widespread problem. It is. Although there has been a significant decrease over the past several years, it's still a widespread problem, unfortunately. Every 9 minutes, Child Protective Services says that every 9 minutes, a child is sexually abused. These are facts. These are statistics that have been found through Child Protective Services. I'll share another story. I used to lift up the couch for my abuser one. I used to lift up the couch so that he could hide underneath the couch when the Child Protective Services came knocking at the door and did their annual check-in. I was about 6 or 7 years old. Imagine a 6 and 7-year-old child, not too strong, but I'm struggling trying to lift this couch up to try to hide my first abuser underneath the couch. And so when she would come in, there was a pretending, oh, hi, how are you? Nothing's going on in this house. What stays in this house, like the other two says, what goes on in this house, we're going to keep it hush. He was underneath the couch. She came in and she actually sat on his head. She sat on his head. And so she, and mind you, she was very hefty. And she sat down on the couch and she sat right on his head. And she would ask the questions, the series of questions that Child Protective Services asked. And I sat there as a good little girl, pretending that everything was fine, pretending that my mother was doing all that she was supposed to do. Because, you know, at least she told the police. At least she believed me. But there was still a healing thing that she needed to go through that she wasn't able to quite let him go. So I continued to be around my first abuser, even after she called the police, even after I went down to the police station and I drew my little pictures of what happened to me, because that's what you have to do at the station. Draw the pictures of what happened to you. They give you stuffed animals. Do what happened to you. So I did. I showed what happened to me with the stuffed animals. I drew the little pictures down on the pieces of paper that they gave me. And they believed me, but I still live with my abuser. I still live with them. There was still a pretending there. Every 9 minutes. Even if it doesn't look like something is happening, every 9 minutes, a child is getting sexually abused. 1 in 9 girls and 1 in 53 boys under the age of 18 experience sexual abuse or assault at the hands of an adult. And usually it is a family member. It is someone that you know. It is someone who is closest to you. It is someone who might have the most access to your child. Some of the effects of child sexual abuse: about 4 times more likely to develop symptoms of drug abuse. So within my family, there's what you call negative cycles of abuse. There was a familial curse going on. My mother suffered child sexual abuse by the hands of her biological father. So although she married my dad, divorced my dad, got with my second abuser, my stepfather, and he was the one who abused me. And so because the situation there, I was still living with the abuser. I think somehow it got out. The authorities found out, so I was shipped off to Texas to live with my dad. After 2 years there, I wasn't abused, bless God, sexually there. So I came back here to Virginia to my aunt and my grandmother, where my aunt married a man who was in jail for rape. He was allegedly had raped his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend at the time. And so fast forward, when he got out of jail, she married him. He became my second abuser. Signs. There are signs. There are always signs that sometimes we are not paying attention, we are not looking at. Those were signs that also my aunt was not seeing, and she was not seeing. I'm saying this now as a healed person. I'm saying this now at the time, I didn't understand while I was going through these things. I wasn't understanding, but as survivor Elektra, now I can see going back that my aunt was not able to recognize these signs because she did not go through the help that she needed. She didn't go through the therapy that she needed. She didn't acknowledge. She wasn't educated about what she needed to do, about what abuse looked like in her own household. There's so many secrets that went on between my mother and my aunt. There was too many secrets, and still, I know it's still secrets to this day. There's too many secrets going on in that household. And so the abuse continued to perpetuate through the generation with me. So here she is as an adult marrying possibly her father because he was the one who abused my mother, and it is believed that he abused her as well. And so she married also someone just like her dad, which was my second abuser. There's always signs. He was in jail for rape. And so since I was already in the court system, no man was supposed to be around me unless they were married. No man was supposed to be living in the household with me unless they were married. So they hurried up and got married. Next thing you know, he coerced me into friendship. I was not in extracurricular activities. I was always around adults. I was the child that didn't go anywhere. I begged to go back to the word drill team, where my godmother was the director. I wanted to get out the house, and they did not put me in anything. They didn't put me in any extracurricular activities. I was not involved outside of the household. So every day from school, I would come home and I would see his face. He was the one that was like my best friend because he talked to me. He played games with me. He cooked my food. We ate dinner together. He laughed and joked with me. He did homework with me. All of these things he did with me and for me. He was the greatest uncle ever. Until he started fondling me. Until he started touching me inappropriately. That's how it started. See, another sign was my aunt. She was obese and she was bedridden. So that's how it happened. That's how she didn't know. She was bedridden. She stayed in the bed all day, every day. So I would come home and he would be who I would be with all day, every day. Where was my grandmother, you ask? Oh, my grandmother was an RN. She worked evening shift, 2 to 11 p.m. Matter of fact, she worked at Eastern State Hospital, Williamsburg. She was top dog RN. So she was very needed in the psychiatric ward. While her granddaughter was at home being sexually abused by the man that her daughter married into the family. Signs. I would say pay attention to your children. Don't allow your children to constantly be around adults and only adults all day, every day. That is a dangerous setup. I don't care who it is. I don't care what. Do not have your child spend all day, every day with adults. They need to be around children. They need to be in extracurricular activities. They need to be protected. You need to be watchful. I was the child that slipped through the cracks. Nobody was paying attention. Pay attention to the signs. If someone went to jail for rape, there is a small possibility that this person who went to jail for this thing did not go to any sort of therapy, did not do any acknowledging that he was in the wrong, his language. Pay attention to a person's language. There was no responsibility in the actions that he took, nothing for what he was in jail for. So it happened again and again. About 4 times more likely to experience PTSD as adults, about 3 times more likely to experience major depressive episodes. My mother was addicted to drugs. Couldn't understand and figure out why she was addicted to crack cocaine until I found out that her father sexually abused her, impregnated her, and her parents took her to get an abortion. How do you think you would have responded to something like that? She didn't go to therapy. She didn't acknowledge the abuse. She went into the Army. And when she got discharged out of the Army, it was because she had major depressive disorder. If you don't deal with it, it will deal with you. It will come back to haunt you. We have to deal with these effects. We have to acknowledge the things that we go through as survivors so that we can go from victim to survivor to thriving in life. Thriving in life. But because my mother didn't go through any counseling, any of those things, these particular statistics, drug abuse and major depressive, she had it. She suffered that. Because she was also 1 in 9 girls. And mind you, let me put this disclaimer out. These are reported statistics. So imagine this number being just a tad bit larger, because these are only reported statistics. There is countless people, children, women, boys, men, who have not told a single soul. This number would be a lot larger, understand that. And so, as far as intervention and prevention strategy, one of those things is therapy, is supportive group counseling. So going back to how and when I met Mama V, it was an answer prayer to me when we met, because at that point of my life, I had court ordered therapy every Tuesday at 6:15 p.m. This helped me through my teenage years to learn how to become an adult, learn how to validate my feelings. At the time, I thought it was bogus. I didn't think it helped me. I'm like, why am I here? Just talking. But there is therapy and talking with the right people. And the right people is a professional counselor who can help you unpack and process the hurt, the pain, to help you to appropriate the shame and the guilt, not internally, because it wasn't your fault, to not internalize that guilt and that shame, but to externalize that to the appropriate persons who it was their fault, not yours. It was my abuser's fault, not mine. Stop taking on that ill-appropriate shame and false idea of guilt. No. But therapy will help you understand that. Being educated will help you to understand that and how to appropriate your feelings, how to identify your feelings. And I see this, Erica. I think I might be going over my time.
It's all right, girl. It was good. We were all hanging on the edge of our seats. I didn't want to stop you.
But these are the intervention strategies. Get the therapy and help that you need. When I met Miss Veronica, she had a group that helped me in the process, that helped me to become an adult survivor of child sexual abuse. It was helpful to be around other survivors who were adults just like me, to be connected, and it is a sort of family. So having the appropriate family, having people around you who understand, who know what it is that you're going through mentally, emotionally, even physically, of what the ailments that might manifest in your body for having gone through such traumatic events and experiences. Find a support group, find therapy, counseling. There is said that every counselor needs a counselor. And right now I am still in counseling. I have identified yet another counselor for me right now, because every counselor needs a counselor, especially a counselor who has had past childhood experiences and traumatic experiences that they have overcome in their life. It is still necessary to have a counselor to go throughout your journey of healing. So I am a strong advocate of counseling and therapy, as I am becoming one myself, and also supportive group therapy as well, in which I have found through Miss Veronica, and we are still connected to this day. So thank you so much. Thank you. I hope I didn't go over too much, but
you're fine, honey. I think all of us were very much on the edge of our seats. And it's hard when someone is giving out the meat that we did this for in the first place to be like, okay, your time is up. Even though, we try to keep on the clock. But I mean, phenomenal, your transparency. I appreciate it, because so many people are shamed into feeling like they can't feel what they're feeling, and that it's something wrong with expressing what they've been through, because that's part of the whole victimization, is that you don't talk about it, you don't feel nothing. There's nothing happening for you to feel anything about. So I appreciate you. I love you. You are so phenomenal. I'm loving seeing you walk in your ministry and your queenness and the beauty of the relationship that God has given you and connected you with so many other survivors, and that you continue to give back. We want to welcome everybody back from the break, and we are going to end out this awesome and amazing event with a wonderful young man named Brother Jack Stosfopf, also one of our Survivors Not Victims friends and partners, and we're just excited to have him on. Jack is going to share as he sees fit. Keep him in prayer because he's not feeling well. You would never know it, but keep him in your prayers as he goes forth to share. And also, we have Nisha Himes, who may be logging in about 3:30 or so when she leaves the event that she also has sponsored for today, which is an abuse awareness event as well. So we're going to go ahead and let Jack do what he does. He has until about 3:15, 3:20. If he doesn't use all that time, that's fine. We will go straight into the Q&A. Please, guys, if you have questions, if you have anything that you want to know, write it down so that you can actually ask those questions when we do the Q&A at the end. And as Nisha is able to log in, we will turn over the floor to her to have her share before we actually sign off at the end with the last part of our Q&A. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jack. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate you. If you want to introduce yourself, share a little bit about you so people know who you are, where you're living right now, that would be great. And we look forward to hearing from you. Jack Stosfopf, everyone.
Thanks, Erica. Yeah, my name's Jack, and I currently live in Kansas. That is where I was born and raised, and I just recently moved back here after being gone for like 38 years, I think. When I came back, before I came back, I was living in New York City for the last 8 years, and prior to that, Virginia most of the time. But anyway, yeah, forgive me, I'm just a little bit under the weather. But I wanted to share with you a little bit about healing. Healing is possible. I'm sorry, I get a little emotional sometimes. But, you know, how do I want to say? You know, my sexual abuse began shortly after my mother passed away when I was 4 years old. And we were 5 children that were passed around to different foster care homes. And some of those homes were very abusive. And anyway, that kind of began everything. And then later on, when I was a preteen, I was being raped by a family member, a man. And anyway, I kept all that to myself for most of my life. And you know, I never really healed from that. And sometimes I think God has to do the dramatic in my life. God does whatever he has to do, I think, to have you come to the place where you need to be. And for me, you know, I ended up going through a period of time when I tried when I was in the military to have some counseling, but at that time, nobody knew really how to counsel or, young men that had been sexually abused. And that was pretty much something that had been covered up. Mm-hmm. And there weren't many resources available. And so, throughout my life, I would try to talk to my wife about that. And she didn't want to have any part of that. You know, it was difficult for her. She couldn't handle that. And so I finally got to the point where all that pain and everything inside of me, it finally came out. It manifested itself, and I had to enter a psychiatric ward for a weekend, and that in itself was pretty traumatizing. And after I came out of that, I was laying in bed one day. It took me months to recover from that moment. You know, I ended up losing my job. I had my dream job at NASA at the time, And anyway, I was laying in bed feeling sorry for myself, trying to pull myself together, and I couldn't do it. I remember laying in bed, and I was just crying. And I heard God speak to me, saying, Jack, the day's coming when I'm going to change your life to the point where you don't even recognize yourself physically. And I thought that was kind of odd, you know. I ended up telling my ex-wife at the time about that. I said, I heard these words very clearly, and I want you to remember that. Just remember that. And 2 years ago, I was with my daughter in New York City, and she took a picture of me, and I looked at the picture, and I was like, "Who is that?" I'd lost like 80 pounds, and I was very physically fit and everything, and I heard God speak to me. Said, "Remember?" And I remembered very quickly. I was like, "Yeah." And the pain that I went through for so many years, I remember asking God, "Will the pain ever end?" Because I never thought it would. I get emotional, not because I'm in pain, but because of the joy that God gives me. He's with me throughout all my life, And I when I was going through therapy after the psychiatric ward experience, um, I was like, when does this ever end? When does it ever end? And when I would read the Bible, read the scriptures, I would hold on to all the scriptures it's saying, that would talk about healing and how we overcome by the word of our testimony and the power of the blood of Jesus Christ. And the more I've spoke about what had happened to me, the more that I would receive my healing, to the point where I was no longer ashamed, and that my testimony had the power to help other people heal as well and give them courage. I've had phone calls at like 2 o'clock in the morning from guys I worked with and said, my grandfather raped me as a boy. I've had many encounters, just amazing encounters. Um, when I was living up in New York City, I came back to Virginia, and I met a lady. For an example, this is just one example of many examples. I met a lady in a parking lot at Walmart there, and she was asking for money for her ministry, and I was like, "Well, I really don't have any to be giving." I said, "What kind of ministry do you have?" And I don't remember what it was. I think it was for helping homeless people and stuff. And I said, "Well, I kind of have my own ministry myself." And I said, "That's to minister to those that are broken in spirit and hurting from sexual abuse and everything." And I shared with her a little bit about that, and she ended up telling me how her husband had raped her the day after giving birth to her daughter, and that was like 26 years before, prior to that. And she was just weeping in the parking lot, and we hugged, we embraced, And she was just, flooding my shoulder, with tears. And she was saying, Jesus help me, Jesus help me, Jesus help me. And I was just praying along with her, Jesus help her, Jesus help her, Jesus help her. I didn't have any other words. And after a while, she looked up at me and she said, how can you do that? I said, how can I do what? She said, how can you talk about what happened to you as if it doesn't bother you? I said, well, that's the difference. I said, it used to. But because I've shared and talked about it, healing can only come, the sexual assault, sexual abuse, things like that can, the healing of your soul, your spirit can only come about by talking about it. And that's one thing that the devil really wants to do, is keep you from talking about it. He wants to cover it up. And, I don't remember the quote. I really wanted to prepare, like a real presentation. And, you all know Frederick Douglass, and I'll probably butcher the quote, but, he said that the foundation of this nation is built upon families. And one thing that Satan really wants to do is destroy the foundation. He wants to destroy the family. Okay, and it's easier, I believe he said, it's easier to raise up a child. How is it? Healthy and everything, than to mend a broken man. Okay, and I really believe that the statistics are a lot higher than I think it's what, one in four or 1 in 3 women that have been sexually assaulted before the age of 18, and 1 in 6 for boys. I believe it's a lot higher than that, because I know so many people. And healing is possible. I will tell you, one of the things that happened to me, I had a book that right after I came out of that psychiatric ward experience, there's a book, and I highly recommend it. I can't think of the name of the person right off, but it's called Healed Without Scars. That's the title of the book. Okay, and this is before the day of ordering a book off of Amazon or whatever and having it sent to your home. I ordered the book from Books A Million, and I couldn't wait to get the book. And I was reading it in the store for hours, just absorbed in it. And when I left that store, I was driving home and I was just talking to God. God is so personal. And that's one thing that when I think a lot of children that have been sexually abused, assaulted, physically abused, whether it's emotionally or spiritually or physically, I think they, a lot of survivors of sexual assault and things like that, they have a hard time believing that God can love them. And when I left that store, I was just praying and I was just talking to God. I said, God, I know that you're the great physician, and I know that you're doing a work within me, and I know that I'm healing. But I feel alone right now. And I feel like I'm laying in this hospital bed. This is exactly what I said. I feel like I'm laying in this hospital bed all alone. And it would be really nice if a nurse could just open this door. If a nurse could just open this door and ask me how I'm doing. I know that you're not supposed to talk on the phone when you're driving, but my phone rang immediately. And it was my pastor. And he said, Jack, God just put it on my heart to call you and ask you how you're doing. God cares. God loves you more than you can imagine. For some of us, it takes the dramatic to bring about our healing. You know, for me, it was pretty traumatic. Dramatic, not traumatic. It was dramatic. And, you know, now that I'm in a place where I'm more, I'm comfortable with things that have happened to me in the past. I don't consider those things, like Paul, the Apostle Paul. He was a very learned man, and he said everything in the past I counted as dumb. And he wasn't talking about the things that were bad about it, that had happened to him. I don't think, but I think that's a lesson for all of us, to put those things in the past and to know that God really does love us to the point where there's healing. Is there healing without scars, like the book title? I don't know. Jesus hung on the cross, and I believe that there were scars, in his feet and his hands. But I will say that healing is very, very possible, and that you can, we're more than overcomers. We're more than conquerors through Christ Jesus. And that's pretty much really what I want to say, and to encourage anybody that might be hurting, that you can overcome anything that's happened to you. You can rise above those things, and so I think my time is about up, and I'm gonna turn it back over to Erica.
Thank you, Jack. That was amazing. I appreciate you sharing.